Welcome everyone to Caller Commentary. We are your pauper commentators, Michael Petchik and Adrian Gonzalez. How's it going, Adrian?
Oh, good.
Yeah, I finished up a bunch of stuff at work. I feel a lot more relaxed. We've got some cool stuff to talk about tonight. Adrian, I know your work's currently a little busy as well, so after this week, we should both be a lot more comfortable and relaxed. All right, let's take care of some stuff in the upkeep so we can get on to the main show.
So you all know that we've got a Patreon for just $1 an episode. You too can hear the full show, including the pre and post show, and get access to our patron exclusive Discord channel. Not a bad deal. What do you have for us today, Mike?
We are also brought to you in part by Hipsters of the Coast. They are a really cool content site. I actually got to meet some of our quote-unquote coworkers over the last week at a event related to PAX. It was real neat. Shout outs to all of them.
Oh yeah, you should probably talk about that a little, huh?
Yeah, we'll get into it at some point during the show, I'm sure. But yeah, go check them out. They have all sorts of content for a variety of formats, and they upload articles pretty much every day of the week. So go check them out. Go show them some love on social media, and yeah, that's pretty much it. Do you want me to talk about the party I went to?
Yeah, I forgot about it. I think you should.
Yeah, so I got to go to the WotC PAX party, which was a really neat event. I was arguably the least famous person in that room. There were a lot of really neat people. I got to talk to some folks from the Magic community who are super, super rad. And yeah, it was kind of a bizarre event. Not to bash Wizards here or anything, but like, I don't know, a loud club with booming music is not exactly what I think of when I think of entertaining a bunch of Magic players, but you know,
you guys had a private club?
Yes, it was at a private club in like a very trendy part of town with very loud, like bass boosted dubstep remixes of video game music blaring. It was.
Oh, I mean, did people get lit? Was it erasure?
Was
there an open bar?
There was an open bar, and I did get to see MPL member Christian Calcano like just going in on the dance floor, but yeah, it was a little bit of a weird vibe, and also I'm not really a party guy.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm a little bit more introverted than that, but like super cool experience, and you know, very honored to have been able to go to this. Also, as I've told people on social media, I met streamer Caleb Durward, who within 15 seconds of us talking did point out that people have compared him to Seth Rogen, but I quote unquote look much more like Seth Rogen than he does. So thanks, Caleb. But yeah, that was my neat thing for the past week.
That's cool.
All right, so to segue here in a reasonably neat way, we started to get spoilers for War of the Spark, which is, I don't know if you've been paying a whole ton of attention. Did you see the trailer?
I didn't watch the trailer, but I know it has link. Yeah. So here's the thing, Mike. I actually consume very little Magic content. I just read about it later.
Okay,
that's sort of how I live my life, to be honest with you. I just read about it later.
So the trailer is very Avengers of Infinity War-esque.
Yeah, the whole set pretty much is, and I think it is Linkin Park, and I think it opens up with Liliana. She's got a horde of zombies, and it goes, "How can you see into my?" Oh, wait, that's Evanescence.
So when I first watched it, my immediate reaction was, wait a second, is this like the slow soul, the slow sad like movie trailer take of a Linkin Park song? And then I was like, okay, it is cool. Not my cup of tea, but they did a really great job on the trailer. It's a really cool set. The main gimmick for this set, or quote unquote gimmick, is that there is a planeswalker in every pack. They have confirmed we don't get common planeswalkers, so sorry to dash everyone's hopes.
They actually turned out how I sort of expected they would. The uncommon ones only have minus abilities, or or for the most part, I was very surprised by the static abilities, which
Right.
makes sense to make them more powerful, but I was a little surprised by the static abilities.
It's a very interesting approach to designing an uncommon walker, and I really like it. And actually, all the walkers, not just the uncommons, all have either a static or triggered ability, which is an interesting way to do it.
I did talk to you about, I think, the minus abilities. We talked about that in the hipsters Slack. Someone else brought it up. How, even before you figured out Bolus's grand plan is to steal all the planeswalkers, definitely there were going to be a bunch of them dying. And so someone said, not me, said they'll probably, all uncommons will have only minus abilities to show that their power is diminishing. And I think that that's just a great, called shot. It's very flavorful.
So are you in the camp that all the walkers with only minus abilities are the ones that die? Because I've seen that theory thrown around.
Well, I don't know. I definitely think it's some Avengers, Infinity War type stuff. I don't know how I think about that. I think that what they're gonna do, I don't think they're gonna kill off planeswalkers completely. I think they're gonna definitely dial back that design space. I think someone else said that too on the hipster Slack. I just agreed with all of it. But I think that it's gonna be a lot like actual Infinity War, where it's like JK. They can kind of bring them back whenever they want, right? Because think about like the mending, or think about like Tarkir. It's like, oh, that stuff just didn't happen.
People died in the mending. Like a bunch of walkers lost pretty much everything. I don't know.
I just mean Ugin died. Ugin's around now. They can do whatever they want. Like, I wouldn't say that even if they kill off a planeswalker, I wouldn't say that's the last you'll ever see of that planeswalker.
I think that's fair. Although they have kept Elspeth pretty dead. We have
what about the Wanderer?
The Wanderer is not Elspeth, my dude. I'm making that called shot here. Like, whatever we find out about them, I don't think that the Wanderer is Elspeth. I just don't know how on earth, Elspeth, who's been dead on a plane based on ancient Greece, shows up looking like a random Yojimbo out of a Akira Kurosawa movie. But we're deviating into plotland, and both of us are very bad at Vorthos stuff, in totality. I'm of the opinion that someone has to die in this. Otherwise, there is no emotional impact and there's no stakes. But regardless, big pitch, there are 36 planeswalkers in this set, which is absurd to me. It's going to be a very interesting limited format. I did want to talk, before we get into our sort of main two things, I think that this is actually going to be good for Pauper for one very specific reason. With this many walkers, I think there's going to need to be a reasonably plentiful amount of removal in order for these planeswalkers not to become huge focal points of the game and really create this sort of high variance format where if someone hits a bunch of walkers, they're just going to win. Does that kind of track with you? Am I making sense here?
Yeah, that makes sense.
I can see there being both a lot. We've already seen one of the keywords, amass, which we'll get into in a bit, which creates tokens, and we've also seen some pretty reasonable removal and interaction at the common level. So I think that this is going to be a good shot for us, even though we don't get any of the planeswalkers. It's kind of counterintuitive.
Cards.
Yeah.
Well, they have to have ways to deal with them, like you said.
Exactly.
And in fact, there already are some cool things coming out, which we will talk about in a bit.
All right.
Or right now.
Well, so we're going to start off with a tweet that has been making the rounds in the Pauper community that I think is actually super important. So Andrew Brown at Merc_lurker on Twitter, who is the WotC game balance designer / recruiter, as listed in his profile, and former Platinum Pro. He posted a tweet that included one of the cards that's been spoiled, Obnixilus's Cruelty, and he included the following text with it. War of the Spark Twitter Stories Part 1. Do not adjust your TV screens. Ob Nixilis' cruelty is a common. Starting with War of the Spark, we're making an effort to have more exciting cards at common. Hashtag WotC staff. So this card in question, Ob Nixilis' cruelty, is 2 and a black for an instant. Target creature gets -5/-5 until end of turn. If that creature would die this turn, exile it instead. So,
Mike, why should I care about this card?
Because I actually went out of my way to find all the other effects that give this amount of debuff at common. And boy howdy is this a lot better than any of them. So other notables in this category include Pull Under, which is just the target creature gets -5/-5 until end of turn, and it costs 5 and a black. It costs twice as much as this spell. Doesn't have the exile clause. The only like -5/-5 effect in Pauper that is cheaper than this, that is always a -5/-5, is Executioner's Swing, which is white and a black, and it has to target a creature that dealt damage this turn.
I remember that. This from Gate Crash.
Yes, it is from Gate Crash, but like the other options are stuff like Demon's Grasp, which is just 5 mana for a sorcery with the same effect.
Well, we have Grasp of Darkness, which is -4/-4.
We do.
We have that one that just came out in the last set where you have to sack a creature. But you're saying that just no downside, no additional cost. This just straight up gives a creature -5/-5, and to boot, it'll exile that Gurmag Angler for you.
Yes, and it's at 3 mana, which is a pretty reasonable price point for removal.
Okay,
so
that's pretty exciting.
Yeah, and like looking at some of the other options, like not to go way back, but like the equivalent of this in Torment, Waste Away, is 5 mana for this effect with an additional cost of discarding a card from your hand.
It's basically Force at Will.
Oh boy, we'll get into the bad card comparisons later. We've got one that I have a take on, but Ob Nixilis' cruelty is pretty landmark removal because it's not just a Doomblade, right? It's not just kill anything, but we haven't seen removal like this in quite some time. And I think that if this is the case where they're sort of amping up what happens at common, I'm incredibly excited for this. Especially because for a long time, standard releases have been fairly humdrum. We're actually even working on ways to spice up our set reviews because we've heard you. We know that it's not interesting for us to go through absolutely everything, but we are working on a new process for that. Don't you worry. So Adrian, do you think this card realistically will see play?
That's so tough, Mike. Threats are better than removal in Pauper. So removal like this is definitely a step in the right direction. Is it better in black decks than Snuff Out? Certainly in the mirror, yes, because you'll be trying to kill Gurmag Anglers, which Snuff Outs cannot kill. I just worry that there's a preponderance of removal that 9 times out of 10 will get the job done just as well. I'm thinking specifically of like Victim of Night. I'm thinking specifically of Echoing Decay, where -5/-5 is good. Yeah, it definitely is. But like, is Gurmag Angler the best creature? Like, does it need to be answered right away? I think that there are a lot of meta-dependent factors on whether or not this card will see play. Do I think it's a good card? Absolutely. But I think that we'll have to wait and see where it actually gets slotted in. What do you think about that?
I think it is tricky because like the best place for this is in a black mirror, because if you're in black, you're probably playing Gurmag Angler. If you aren't, there are other decks playing Gurmag Angler. Like this kind of, I don't want to put on my tinfoil hat here, but it feels almost as though it was designed with Pauper in mind.
Yeah, sure. I just think that 9 times out of 10, the other removal is going to get its job done just as well, or if not better. So I'm a little hesitant to say I 100% think it'll see play, but I definitely think it's a strong card that has a lot of potential.
All right. What if we put it at just speaking in vagaries and possibilities, if this was at Doomblade's mana cost, 1 and a black,
I think it'd be a lot better.
Okay, yeah.
I think it would. I think it would 100%. It's just better than Doomblade at that point, for the most part.
Better than Doomblade. Interesting. Okay.
And the reason I think that is because it kills black creatures, which Doomblade's like. That's for the reason people don't play Doomblade. It's not even free like Snuff Out, right? You got to tap out to not kill black creatures. But it also does a pretty good job stopping an Ulamog's Crusher. Sure, you're gonna lose 2 permanents, probably 3. But you're gonna get to block it, and you're gonna get to make it a 3/3, and then destroy it somehow. So where this actually might see play also is in like weird like red black control style decks, or maybe blue black decks that are not blue black Delver, that don't need super efficient answers like Snuff Out. Like maybe it could go into a deck that's like more of a teaching style control deck, which wants more generalized answers. And isn't gonna play like 3 or 4 of them. Like this is probably like a 1 or a 2 of in that deck.
I mean, I'm just gonna toss it out there. Do you think there was that era where the Marasatron variants were playing red pretty heavily for the interaction and removal that it gave them in the form of stuff like Flame Slash and Lightning Bolt? Do you think that there's a chance that might be the home?
We're comparing a 3 mana spell to a 1 mana spell in those cases, so I don't know. That's tough.
We're comparing a 3 mana spell. Like, notably, neither of those spells deal with Gurmag Angler, which I don't want to harp on, but is a fairly relevant part of this format. And I do think that has always been one of the things that deck struggles to deal with if you can't counter it on the way down. I don't know. I'm just like, mainly the big takeaway for me here is that I'm incredibly excited to see a removal spell this good, because for a long time it seems like the prevailing design philosophy within Wizards has been that we don't get great removal because it disincentivizes playing good creatures, and that leads to a play experience that biases very strongly towards control decks. And I don't know, I'm very excited for this. And
you know what, it's actually really good against blue black Delver because it also hoses, well, again, I'm thinking specifically of Stormbound Geist. It also really hoses Stormbound Geist. The deck's not playing Stormbound Geist in the main board, though.
Yeah, it's a tricky one because without having played this, it's a little hard to make a call on it. But the first glance is it does a lot of things right. I don't think it's like a perfect slam dunk, absolutely going to go in every black deck ever. But it has enough things that it does right where I'm kind of like, this is reminding me of Pulse of Marasa, in the fact that at first blush, it's not like a home run, but enough parts of that card look right to me where I'm like, the whole of this probably works. Like, it hits most of the threats in the format and kills them. It exiles stuff, so it deals with Undying Evils and recursive cards, or sorry, Undying and recursive elements like, the Raise Dead sort of effects. And it's at 3 mana, which is a pretty reasonable spot. It's instant speed. Like, it's just got all these little things where I'm like, it's not perfect, but I like every part of this card. So that's kind of my reaction to this. And I'm really excited. If what Andrew's saying is correct and we're going to see a increase of interesting stuff at common, I have to imagine part of that is because of Pauper and not just a kind of like, hey, let's make Magic more complex again push. But I could be mistaken.
Yeah,
I don't know. I'm excited for the future with this statement out there, and seeing the card that was paired with it makes me think that it's an actual commitment to increasing the interest/power level of stuff at common.
Yeah, which is a noble goal, even if it begins with removal. And we all know removal and Pauper is not. I mean, I don't know. We got Lightning Bolt, so who can really complain?
We got Bolt, we got Doomblade. What more do you need?
Yeah, what more do you need? Dice to Doomblade. A rallying cry of bad creatures everywhere. Do you remember when that was a thing?
Yes, I do remember the terrible, bad forced meme of Dies to Doomblade, which...
Oh, I always thought that was said in earnest.
There were people who said it in earnest, but like... I don't I don't think that's a bad take that I want to like dignify with my time or thought.
All right, well, consider it forgotten. Fine.
All right, let's do a combat step, and then let's get into some of the other cards from this set that we've seen already that I think would be good to talk about.
Okay. I
What
think I already know your answer.
what do you have to compare for me here?
Promos and not promos.
So are we saying just all promos versus all non-promos?
Yeah, just in general. Do you like promos or not?
Um,
Promos or original foilings? I'll make it even. I'll make it a little
promos
better.
or original foilings? I actually, in general, my ordering is, and the only thing that I really pick up foils for is cubes, alt art or like alt frames. So generally F&M and other promos are my favorite. I love weird looking stuff. I have moved away from text lists, but I love weird looking magic cards that are just barely magic cardish. Then original foils, then any other pack foils that are available, and finally like non-foils, and probably a little bit below that white borders, because I white border all my lands in cube.
Disgusting.
It makes it easier to sort after draft.
Okay, that's true.
Like, it's solely a practical thing. Although I do have white borders in a bunch of my EDH decks now. I don't know. Maybe I'm history's greatest monster, but...
No, it's actually really legit. And, to be honest, there are some great white bordered basics, but they're only in white border. See 7th edition.
7th has some good ones. I'm actually particularly partial to revised. And if they weren't super expensive, there's actually some pretty nice stuff in Portal 3 Kingdoms. I've got a couple of them kicking around, but they are like $1 to $2 a piece and a little bit pricier than
Coward.
I want. Did you just call me a coward?
Yes.
All right.
How dare you
fair
not buy
enough.
P3K basics?
All right. But yeah, my answer is usually going to be F&M promos, especially if there's an alt art. But outside of alt arts, I will go for whatever has either original foilings or whatever actually, and this is a big one for me, whatever has the closest to the Oracle text on it.
Okay, that's fair.
Because like I generally, when I'm cubing, there's always one person who hasn't played with my cube. And the last thing I want is something like having a Visions copy of Impulse in my cube, where it tells you to shuffle your deck afterwards, and having to explain to someone, I know it has those words on it, don't do that. Yeah, it's, I'm very picky about these things, but yeah, F&M promos. That's going to be my answer. And I've already forgotten. Let me just open the doc here. I've forgotten what I put down for you. Oh, Magic Fests, or as they were formerly known as GPs, or F&M. Which one are you taking?
I'm gonna go with F&M. Hanging out with your friends, drinking a beer. It's a lot more relaxed.
Of course,
I'm not as competitive as I used to be.
Okay, yeah, that's legit. This one's one where it popped into my head, and I was like, I don't honestly at this point know which I care more about. I guess Magic Fests are fun because you get to see people you don't see all the time. But
yeah, that's fair. I mean, it's more of a spectacle.
Sure, yeah, it definitely is. And having seen how they treated the Mythic Invitational, that was spectacle galore. So, all right, so you're going F&M, strong F&M.
Yeah, strong F&M.
All right, so F&M promos, F&M for your events. Easy one and done. F&M for all. All right. So
I'm a casual now. What can I say?
Honestly, it'll do you some
Welcome aboard.
Yeah, I mean, the busier I get with the rest of my life, the more I enjoy like the fun part of Magic instead of the competitive part of Magic. But I'm also not willing to, go full casual, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
All right, so we've got a couple other spoilers here that I kind of want to get into, because I think all of them have sort of interesting design space that we don't always see at Common. and I kind of wanted to talk through some of them and see if this whole we're giving you more interesting things at common bears out. And I also didn't order any of these images in our show notes here, so I'm just going to take the one that I want to talk about first. Crush Descent. We're starting off strong. I'm gonna make a very bad like comparison here in a second. Very on brand. Crush Descent. Art is great. This is actually a new planeswalker who we've never met before, Teo.
Yeah, these Eternals are very Necron if you ever played 40K.
Oh,
but I digress.
Very much
Tomb
so.
Kings.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So Crush Descent is 3 and a blue for an instant. It reads as follows: counter target spell unless its controller pays 2. So not a great rate on a quash or soft mana leak effect. But then it has the keyword amass 2. And it reads put 2 +1/+1 counters on an army you control. And Adrian, before you ask, I've looked. There are no armies in the entire history of Magic outside of changelings.
Right. I thought it was a new creature type, and it feels like it's specifically designed to not play with existing zombies.
Yes. And then it continues on. If you don't control one, create a 0/0 black zombie army creature token first.
So you counter a spell unless its opponent controller pays 2, and then you either put 2 counters on an existing army, or you create a 0/0 and then you put 2 +1/+1 counters on it.
Yep. So I'm going to say the thing that I said in our Patreon Discord and just get it out there. This is Pauper Mystic Snake, and I'm only partially kidding.
Is because it's a 4-mana ability, a 4-mana spell that counters a spell and then leaves a 2/2.
That is exactly what I'm getting at here. This is counter magic with a 2/2 body stapled to it. And I think we're never getting something as good as actual factual Mystic Snake. I think this is the closest we get, and I actually really like this card. Specifically, I like the fact that playing multiples of this rewards you and less so in Pauper than it will in Limited, because there are obviously spells that play bounce effects. There are decks that play bounce effects, and this feels really miserable against bounce effects because it does create a token. And also, of course, you can't flicker stuff. You can't flicker the token to get another trigger. I think this is a really neat and powerful effect. I don't think that a mana weak, if you will, is super great, but I think stapling a 2/2 body onto it is good.
So you could see a control deck running this.
Yeah,
very easily. And I specifically mean like a mystical teaching style deck. This does not fit into blue black Delver.
Oh no, not
blue black deck.
Not this is in a million years does it fit into that type of deck.
This is in Mike's super fun soul manipulation Crush Descent deck.
Yeah, like this is a card that the neat thing is this is actually the answer. Whenever we talked about teachings back in the day, we'd always be like, there's got to be at least one good flash creature. This is it. It just happens to be an instant, and it happens to make a 2/2. Like, this is the cool creature you can get with teachings. And I actually think that this is a really interesting design space, because I know we've made a lot of terrible card comparisons, but I don't actually feel like calling this Pauper's Mystic Snake is far off from what it is. And yeah, I'm really excited about this thing. It's a super neat little thing. I'm not, however, excited about amass. Do you have any feelings on that keyword?
I'm sorry, I'm thinking. It's cool. There's not really another one like it. Which is what I like about it. It's like shades of Living Weapon in a way.
Shades of Living Weapon, shades of like Afterlife, which we just saw in Ravnica Allegiance, where like
I think it's very on flavor for what the eternal invasion of Ravnica.
That's the other thing. Like, I know I'm not a lore guy. Neither of us have ever claimed to be. It feels weird that an army is one growing creature instead of a lot of little ones. But
no, because they're like a legion, right? They're like a one unit, and then as more things die, more creatures join the unit.
Okay, I guess I can see that.
Or as they do more things, more creatures join the unit. Something like that.
I think it's like mildly parasitic, but
Why? Well, you mentioned that to me in privately. Why do you think that?
Specifically because it doesn't play with cards outside of it, and I
What
think
about proliferate?
so. There's proliferate. I think it's mildly parasitic though, because I I would put dollars to donuts that there was a version of this keyword that instead of the word army just said zombie.
Yes, I agree, and I think that in a way they've left themselves open to doing different types of armies later down the line.
Sure,
Will they? You're right. Will they?
everything about this keyword to me, because it uses a creature type that didn't exist before, and it also does mention zombies because obviously the Eternals are all zombies. This 100% reads to me like a keyword that got nerfed because something somewhere broke as a result of making it just zombie.
Well, there are a ton of zombies in the set also.
That's true. And let's talk about one. I've got one here, Grim Initiate. This one was literally spoiled today. It's 1 red mana for a 1/1 with first strike. When it dies, you amass 1.
I think it's great. I don't know what deck it goes into. Someone on Twitter or something said Mardu Aristocrats. It's powerful because it is 2 zombies, right?
Yep.
It's 1 zombie and it's another zombie. That's good. Look at cards like Doom Dissenter. And then if you have 2 of them, you have 1 big zombie. So I don't know. 2 creatures for the price of 1 is always good. First strike is nothing to sneeze at, even if it's a 1/1. So it's not like a super impressive card, but it's definitely up there and in line with what we were talking about earlier. Of just like both of these cards are just more powerful than commons in other recent sets.
This kind of reminds me of Doom Traveler. I think it's a lot worse than Doom Traveler, but it does remind me of a card that is good enough for them not to print anymore. And I think that's a good sign for it. This one's interesting because the body on the front half of it is in isolation better. But if we get enough playable amass cards, I could see this being a pretty interesting thing in a deck where, because as you mentioned, like if you have multiples of these or other sources of amass triggers, you're just making one big creature. You're just kind of rolling them all up into a ball, and that seems reasonably powerful. Other stuff in red that we got. We've got Burning Prophet. It's 1 in red for a 1/3. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, it gets +1/+0 until end of turn, so almost prowess, and you get to scry 1. This tickling your fancy at all?
Not really. What deck does this? Oh, it could go into burn.
So I've seen people throw around burn. I kind of like this in sort of like a do nothing blue-red control deck.
So sort of like elusive Spell Fist, but not super elusive.
I think sort of like elusive Spellfist, but I think the bit you care about is the scry.
Oh, I see. Okay, the repeatable scry.
Like okay, if I'm playing like kind of draw go and I have this on the table and I've got 5 mana up and I have a Think Twice in hand, I get to pass the turn to my opponent, keep up 5 mana for interaction, and also have access to the ability to scry 1, draw 1 twice. Like turning Think Twice into a pair of ops feels a lot better. I think this is like a weird role player and a potential like very dirtily control deck. I just don't know if it ever actually gets in with all those buffs.
Yeah, so you're thinking of it like it's an eternal scry machine that I sometimes get to attack and kill my opponent with.
It's an eternal scry machine that also like stops early aggression in the form of like 1 toughness creatures. And I like that.
And I like it.
Also considerably more complicated than we've seen in recent years, On Crop Invader. So 2 and a red gets you a 2/2. And as long as it's your turn, it has first strike, and you can pay 1, sack another creature, gets +2/+0 until end of turn. So this is the red Nantuko Husk. Like, yes, you have to pay mana for its sacrifice ability, but I don't know if this has a home. But it's doing enough things on it.
It's you're right. And I think that we've seen all these cards, they just do kind of a lot. But yeah, where is this really gonna go? If it was a free sacrifice another creature, it'd be much better.
If it was free sacrifice, like slam this in like a black red aristocrat shell and go to town.
Yeah. But as is, I think we have better sack outlets. But you're right. The first strike, the +2, like it's not bad.
I love that this makes combat math a lot more complicated. Because of that, as long as it's your turn, it has first strike. Like if you're on the if you're on the aggressive, swinging in with this thing makes combat math a lot more difficult because this thing is potentially eating almost anything it would get blocked by if you have enough other like fodder to sack to it. I'm a big fan of this from a design perspective. I don't know if it's good enough, and I don't think it has a home, but I'm taking this as a very good omen. The only other thing I have on the list here, since I know you're tight on time this evening, I don't want us to take forever. Let's talk about the card that I've seen people talk about for elves. And this is
the most exciting card.
This is the most exciting one for you?
Yes.
Would you like to read it then?
Certainly. We have Vivian's Grizzly. 2 and a green gets you a 2/3. 3 and a green. Look at the top card of your library. If it's a creature or planeswalker card, you may reveal it and put it into your hand. If you don't put the card into your hand, put it at the bottom of your library. That's good. That's great.
And I think that the super interesting thing about this is your opponent doesn't get more information out of it. I don't know. I like that. So people have talked about this in elves, specifically Kendra, the Maverick girl who we've had on the show before. What do you think about this? Because
I think it's really powerful.
It's an engine card, right?
Yeah, it certainly goes into elves, but it could also just go into mono green. Yeah, is Duskwatch Recruiter too strong a comparison?
I was desperately like seeking in my head to figure out what that card was called, because as we were talking I was like, wait a second, there's a card like this that saw standard play. For those who don't remember, Duskwatch Recruiter was a 2-mana 2/2, and you paid 3. Look at the top 3 cards of your library and you can reveal a creature card from among them and put it into your hand. That's a much better card, but kind of the same energy going on here. I like this card for the same reasons Duskwatch Recruiter proved to be like super useful. So I'm 4 mana is a lot though, man.
Yeah, but it's not a 4 of, right?
Sure.
It's like a 2 or maybe a 3 of to help get you out of like tough spots where you flooded.
So I have a question. Does this in combination with Lead the Stampede let elves just cut blue?
I think so. I don't think you really need to waste time with Distant Melody. If you have this card, you can just put more elves in your deck.
Cool. Yeah, I think I'd be very down for that. Just sort of reducing that weird corner case mana problem where you're already running only 13 lands and there's a chance you might have an off-color one in your opener. Yeah, I really like this card. I love that this is an engine card specifically. The fact that like it's a creature with a activated ability that does something that is reasonably powerful, especially in a color that doesn't get card draw in a repeatable form that much. So I guess notably 2 of the cards we talked about tonight, Ob Nixilis' Cruelty and Vivian's Grizzly, are both from kind of this cycle that's attached to some of the Planeswalkers, where they have like a card that's their thing. So these might be something to look out for, just in a very base level, like they're attaching powerful effects to Planeswalkers, but I don't know. It's weird to say this. Modern Horizons is a couple months away, and I'm more excited for this set at the moment.
Yeah, there's a lot of really cool cards, not just at the common level, but just at the uncommon, the rares. There's a lot of good stuff coming out. I know we're not really talking about we didn't talk about cards that don't necessarily excite beyond these really, because most of them are pretty plain, but you got another like flicker type effect that Teferi's Time Twist does exile permanents. It's only if it's a creature that it gets a 1/1 counter. So, probably not as good as Ghostly Flicker, but interesting. We've got, so I'm just like scrolling through.
Yeah, there were There were a couple of
We have
ones.
Samet Sprint, which is interesting, like the mono red,
Oh yeah,
like mono heroic deck.
one red for +2/+1 haste and scry one.
Yeah, we have Honor the God Pharaoh, which is Cathartic Reunion, but I mean you don't discard as many cards, maybe not as good there. It's an amass discard spell for yourself.
Yeah, there's a lot of powerful effects. Oh, we totally blanked on this because I didn't put it in our show notes. Augur of Bolas promo.
Oh, yeah. That card is sick, and I plan on getting them, even though I haven't played a lot of Paper Magic lately.
Yeah, Augur of Bolas is getting a sweet F&M promo. I think it looks awesome. I'm super in love with this like weird merfolk design, especially because, and not to rag on any of the artists who work for Magic, the original art is not super inspiring.
Yeah, it's just like a guy and there's a waterfall, right?
Yeah, it's like not super inspiring or like weird or anything. But yeah, I am pumped for this set. I think it's really cool, and I'm really excited to play limited with this. I'm actually considering going to GP for Team Sealed in this format, which is I've never like.
Wow, thanks for the invite.
Do you want to come up to Providence, Rhode Island?
Kind of. When?
End of May.
Oh, I probably can't. All right.
Little short notice, but yeah, no, like I'm really excited for this set, and I'm kind of shocked because when I first heard the Modern Horizons announcement, I was like, okay, cool. All the hype I had for War of the Spark, gone. And now with 3-4 days of spoilers, I'm like, no, War of the Spark. I'm hyped on this. This looks awesome. Let's go. Yeah. I guess, do you have any sort of closing thoughts on what we've seen of the set so far?
It's pretty lit.
All right, you heard it here, folks. According to Adrian Gonzalez, this set is, quote, pretty lit. All right. How about you take us out of the show? It's been a wonderful romp through these new commons.
Sure. Thanks for joining us today. This podcast is brought to you by the support of our patrons. Please consider supporting us just like them if you like the show. Check for this video or the description of this podcast for details on where to find us. We'd like to remind you for listening to this on a platform with reviews. They're always appreciated as they boost our visibility. If you've got a deck list made for a topic, feel free to contact us either via our website or you can mail us directly at colorcommentary@gmail.com. So thanks to MileJS Pat's Games, Mike's LGS JP Comics, of course, L. You can find our theme song Quantitative and other great tracks over at soundcloud.net/ELLELLELL. I also realized I forgot to thank Marine Bro. Thank you so much for being a supporter of our show. Till next week, this is Agent and Mike signing off for Color Commentary.